Hello again, Michael Ware with the Iowa Firearms Coalition, bringing you Warrior Wednesday today. I have a special guest from NRA-ILA. We have John Commerford, and while some of you may know him, I don't think enough of you do. So I'm really glad that he's able to come talk with us today. John, introduce yourself and tell us what NRA-ILA means.
Well, thank you, sir. Appreciate being on here. I'm the executive director for the NRA's Institute for Legislative Action. So, in short form, ILA is the division within NRA that's out there protecting Second Amendment rights in the courts, in the capitals, both state and federal, and on the local level through our grassroots program. So we're the ones in the trenches doing the actual fighting out there in real America once we get outside of the Beltway here where I am in the DC area.
Okay, so when you say doing the work out in the trenches, that's metaphorical usually, but I'm curious, what exactly does that mean? Give us an example of what that would look like here in Iowa. What does work in the trenches consist of?
So in Iowa, we have a variety on our team. So we have a state director, Nick Bougie, who is actually the ILA employee who goes to the Capitol. He's a registered lobbyist. So when an issue comes up, he is there to respond to that. When we set up legislative agendas heading into a new session at the Capitol, he is the one that would socialize those issues with lawmakers. He would work to get co-sponsors. He would work with groups like IFC and others to make sure we're on the same page most of the time, to get things done in the Capitol and execute on that mission. In addition to Nick, we have a grassroots field coordinator who's assigned to Iowa. Their job is to activate volunteers, go to gun shops, execute on NRA 2A days, make sure people are aware of what NRA is doing, and most importantly, what issues gun owners in Iowa are facing going into that session. So it's a cumulative effort. And then we have a legal team that's always watching. If things went wrong in a state, our state director, our grassroots team, we work as a cohesive unit to get with our litigation counsel to respond in the courts if necessary.
Okay, so at any given moment, there are people working through in and out of Iowa, keeping tabs, advancing the Second Amendment and protecting it. And I am so tickled that my membership dues in NRA go to pay for all this, because I'm glad that that's how it works, correct?
Well, somewhat. Membership dues, fund the building I'm sitting in right now. They fund the electricity. They do provide a core foundation for what ILA is doing. However, the actual dollars that come in that fund sending Nick to the Capitol, that fund sending our lobbyists to Capitol Hill, our lawyers, those come from those direct mail fundraisers that everyone just loves to get in the mail. I always tell folks, we get a question a lot. Why do you send me mail? Why are you wasting money on sending me mail? And I get it. There is a lot of mail that hits the mailbox asking for money. However, if I send you a mailer and that mailer profits $500,000, if it's very difficult to exclude individual people out of a million, 2 million person mail file. But if it's profiting that, and we didn't do that mailer, ILA has 500,000 less dollars to put into the fight.
Mm-hmm.
And to be clear to the listeners out there, this money is going into the fight. I have a suit on, but I actually got it at the clearance rack at the Brooks Brothers outlet. So not even at the regular store, at the outlet. If you ask my wife, I'm an extremely cheap individual. But things are a lot different here. Yeah, this office looks big, but it was already here and it's already paid for. So this is where I work. But the money going in is going directly into the fight. So ILA is funded by members that go above and beyond. Just like when you get the fundraisers for the NRA Political Victory Fund, that is members going above and beyond funding all of those activities.
It's kind of funny that we're talking about it quite like this. When my dad was alive, he would call me up from time, and he was an annual paying member. Me, my wife, my children have been life members for a long time. But I think that it's important that we still contribute in terms of membership to help out and keep the ball bouncing. But my dad, as an annual member, would call up. And he's like, "Hey, I got some mail from ILA the other day. Should I give money to this?" I'm like, "Well, I'll let you decide." I said, "You're smarter than I am, and you've been around a while." I said, "How do you think that these state directors like Nick, and he had met some of the directors before, the liaisons that came out personally." I said, "Did you remember so and so? Did you remember this person?" "Oh yeah, fine gentleman. I like that lady." Blah 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 blah. I'm like, "Yeah." I said, "They're likable." I said, "That's fine," but I said, "They actually do a lot of work." And do you remember when we accomplished this, this, and this in Iowa? Do you remember how it was before and how it is now? Do you remember things like strengthening preemption, constitutional carry? Do you remember emergency powers reform? And you go down to the list, stand your ground, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. I mean, these are monumental changes. I said, "You remember all that stuff, Dad?" "Well, sure." I said, "Well, it wouldn't have happened without ILA. It wouldn't have happened without this collaboration. It wouldn't have happened without these people." And that's what your contribution is going to fund. So if you think that those accomplishments, those defenses, those advancements are worth giving money to, I think you should write a check. He said, "How big?" And I said, "The biggest one you can afford." So I never asked him what that was. That's not my business. But I told him, I said, "Yeah, you make the decision. Here's the truth. Here are the circumstances that are going on. I want you to do what you think's right," because a lot of people don't know, John, that membership dues don't go bang into ILA to fund court cases or pay for employees and do these things. They don't know. And I want them to understand what's true of this. And so I appreciate you illuminating that. I really
Yeah,
do.
absolutely. And look, I come from the state side here at NRA. I mean, I started as an intern at NRA, but I really cut my teeth as a state lobbyist. I lobbied South Dakota, Kansas, Wisconsin, and then when I moved up to help oversee the division, I filled in a lot of states, and every state is different, but the battle is in the states. I've spent a lot of time on Capitol Hill now, just because that's what the job requires, and a lot of my predecessors, they did great jobs for ILA. Don't get me wrong, but a lot came from the federal level, and I think it's a real appreciation for what state directors like Nick do. We used to be based 100% from Fairfax. So when I lobbied South Dakota, Kansas, and Wisconsin, I would fly from Fairfax, Virginia, to those states. I mean, this is more than a decade ago, and a flight to Sioux Falls, South Dakota, and a 3.5 hour drive was $1,200, more than a decade ago. I made some changes here. So our state directors live within commuting distance of one of their capitals. They all have 4 states now, but that saves our members 25% on travel costs. We want the state directors to be where the fight is, and that's in their states. So I think it's important for the listeners out there to realize, as much as I would love to have the budget that would have Nick just allocated to Iowa or just Michigan or one of his states and have 50 lobbyists, they do have multiple states, and they try to divide that time and be mission oriented. Where do they need to be to make the most effective use of their time, or to respond to a threat or an offensive opportunity? So they do really well with that, but we've increased that efficiency by getting them into their states full time.
Well, it's made a difference. I can remember the way it used to be years and years ago. It was very hard to make flights align and to be as quick as we would like to be. The logistics were a problem. It wasn't an issue getting hold of
Yeah.
somebody. For example, if I need to get a hold of Nick, which is no small irony, at literally, this is not a put on. At the moment that John joined this online stage, I was on the speakerphone with Nick Bougie, our NRA-ILA state director, handling or helping handle or link him up with some people that a problem had come up yesterday, and we're handling it yesterday and today because it has immediate and emergent needs. So I'm on the phone with a guy. I call, he answers, which is the way that I like things to go. And then Nick says to me, "Yeah, I'll give this guy a ring and we'll get it handled." That's what's happening, guys. I need you to, that's a perfect example. Again, not a put on. That wasn't manufactured in any way. A thing came up yesterday. We got a hold of ILA this morning, and now we're going to handle it today to be prepared for what comes next. and this thing, I'm not able to speak about it freely yet, but is emerging, and it's being handled. So I want people to truly understand the nature of what's going on here and how responsive ILA has been for us, and our gratitude in that relationship, because this isn't going to get done with one group doing it or this group doing it. This is going to get done well and better with this collaboration. I'm glad we have it. So thank you for that.
No, absolutely. And look, we've had a rough patch here. That's no secret. I mean, since 2019, there's been a lot of challenges, many self-inflicted, uh, many driven by lawfare out of New York, many that could have been ended sooner during the lawfare. The lawfare wasn't going to go away. It wasn't never going to happen, but we could have I think everybody could have agreed we could have done things differently. However, look, we're in the business of restoring confidence in this association, restoring confidence in the American gun owner in wanting to join NRA, and we're not doing that just through talk. We want to do that through action, and through activities at the state capitals in Iowa, working with partners like IFC, rebuilding those relationships with core clubs and associations first that have an official affiliation with NRA, but also with adjacent groups who we may not have agreed with in the past. I mean, we have a standing order with our state team and our federal team to reach out to these groups and work together. And I think I know you've seen it, and I know your
Mm-hmm.
listeners have probably seen it. We're working together with the national groups
Mm-hmm.
because we are a stronger force if we all work together instead of, example, four groups filing four lawsuits on the same topic in the same state. I think, your listeners can look to Illinois and what's been going on this years long fight on a quote unquote assault weapons ban there. I mean, there are like four cases that are combined. Now we're all working together, which is for the greater good. And we should have been doing that a long time ago, but we're doing it now, and that's what matters.
I really do appreciate that, and I think that that's bigger than what most people realize. I know that we all have our organizations, and we're part of them because we believe in them the most. But there are human beings right now on the other side of the walls that we're on, John, that are dying for lack of a kind word. And I will not be one of those people who refuses to offer the kind word. And so a microcosm of that are when we have advocacy groups that are parallel but not combined. It's okay to reach across and say, you know what? Kudos and congrats on that lawsuit win.
Mhm.
But and that's appropriate. That's just decent. But I tell you, I think that when we're combining these things, there's a lot more weight behind it. There's a lot more strategy. There are better legal minds combined. I think it's a really good way to go. So I'm glad to see more of that. Kudos,
Yeah,
man. I think it's
and
smart.
and look, I know there are a lot of people out there that say NRA takes credit for everything, but to be perfectly honest, we also hear that NRA doesn't take credit enough for some of the items that we've worked on. On the
Mhm.
litigation side, you look at the Bruin case in New York, NRA funded that 100%. When you go to Albany and we argued for attorney's fees, it might have been NYSRPA v. Bruin, and they're our official state association and a great partner. And one of the people who came up with the strategy to work with Iowa Litigation Counsel, but the check that the state of New York wrote was to the NRA. It was for $462,000. It should have been a lot more, but they
Mhm.
don't they don't ever pay you what you ask for and what it actually costs. That would have been a seven-figure check. But you see the Duncan case out of California. You see the Rhodey case. NRA's name's not on there. We're working with CRPA, is a great partner on litigation, and they've been in the fight on litigation, but NRA's covering the bills. What you've seen, and a priority for me, is look, the New York lawfare was a tough time, as I mentioned. However, what did we learn from that? There's apprehension, discovery concerns, and things like this. I heard over the years. Look, there's nothing left to discover. The New York AG knows what kind of toilet paper we buy in this building. So there's nothing to hide, there's nothing to fear. I think people realize why they didn't want discovery 10 years ago. We have nothing to hide here. So NRA's name is on cases. All of
Yeah.
the new litigation we're filing, NRA is a named plaintiff because credit should be given with all the work we're doing. but our members need to know that NRA is actually putting our name on those cases. We have the confidence in what our litigation team is doing to put our name on the case. So I think you'll continue to see that with the new cases we file, along with our friends at Second Amendment Foundation and Firearms Policy Coalition, American Suppressor, even NAGR at times,
Mhm.
GOA at times. So we're working together with everyone, trying to just try to restore the Second Amendment rights that all your listeners deserve and were God given.
Well, it's hard to do it without a buck. I wish that it wasn't like that, but I can't show up at the Capitol building. I can't show up to a court. I can't show up at these places with simply a smile and a handshake. I've got to have a little bit more than that. So I encourage people to contribute. I encourage people to go to Iowa FC all the time. And if they're not members, become members. And those members, you are seeing a display across the bottom of the screen now about our trusted partners. If you want to save some money after you've spent it on membership, go there, see these trusted partners, because they're offering discounts that you can actually utilize. And these are people that support IFC, most of them local businesses, some of them nationwide, but they're offering discounts that you should be using. So take these advantages. It's a perk and it's a benefit from membership, and use them to your best advantage. Now, I would, if it's not inappropriate, can I ask you a few questions that are personal,
Sure,
John?
absolutely.
Okay. So tell me about your beginnings, because I've heard a little bit of this story, but I don't know if I couldn't, if asked, I couldn't say, yeah, John started like this and he grew up doing this, blah, 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 blah. I've heard some of those things, but I don't think I could offer that story accurately. So let us know who John Commerford is.
Yeah, sure. I grew up in rural southern New Jersey. I know that's probably hard to believe if people haven't been to New Jersey, but South Jersey's not much different than Southern Illinois. We're dominated by that northern New Jersey political sphere, but I grew up in a very rural county. Grew up working at a gun club. Got into competitive shooting. A really good friend of mine that went to kindergarten with owns a gun club in my hometown. I actually still work there. So if you go to M&M Sporting Clays, you will find me working at the ammo building during large events. And so I got into competitive sporting clays, still shoot competitively. I've been the chairman of the National Sporting Clays Association. But I started at NRA as an intern. I was in college. I went to college in New York. I was living on the Eastern Shore of Virginia, and I was a first mate on a fishing boat in the summer. So I was tuna fishing, things like that, and had a lot more hair and a better tan. But I was kind of a degenerate, right? I'm on the back of a fishing boat, living life, and I realized I had to get my internship. So I cold called NRA. I knew no one here. I wanted to go to law school. So I called our general counsel's office, and they didn't have an internship program. And coincidentally, one of the paralegals was going on maternity leave. And I said, look, I'll work for free. It's for college credit. I need to work 4 days a week and 1 day for class. So they asked me to intern or to interview. So I drove 3.5 hours to Fairfax to interview. I stopped at an outlet mall, actually, coincidentally, the same outlet mall where I bought this suit. And bought a suit, kept the tags on it. Remember, I said I was cheap. And I
Mhm.
interviewed. I turned right around. I headed back. I returned the suit. And then 2 days later, I got a call and they said, we'd like to offer you the position. So I had to move to Northern Virginia right away and stopped at the outlet mall again, had to get clothes. And then I interned. And coincidentally, on my last day of my internship, our HR director wanted to introduce me to the team here in the ILA executive office because their staff assistant had put in his 2 weeks. So I interviewed again and didn't hear anything for a while. And I was in line at graduation for college, actually, and they called to offer me the staff assistant position here and kind of worked my way up from there. And I moved to Northern Virginia and got a townhouse from off of Craigslist without meeting my roommates and got an air mattress and some plastic furniture, I call it, which were bins from Walmart. And actually
Yeah.
lived on that air mattress for about 4 years. Just a typical single guy at the time, but and work my way up. I took a 2-year break from NRA, called a sabbatical. and went to a firearms manufacturer and was assistant general manager, and then came right back and started state lobbying. After Newtown, I saw my former colleagues were in the fight, and it was a tough time, and I wanted to get back into that, and been doing it ever since.
So what's been, and it doesn't have to be NRA or ILA related, but what's been probably your largest challenge to overcome? I'm curious.
Um, in my personal life, I mean, look, my father was had me when he was older. I think he was 51 when he had me. And when you're in high school and your father's had a stroke and didn't take good care of himself, and you have to do that as an only child, that's definitely my biggest challenge. I mean, it helped me grow up very quickly, and having to deal with that in high school and college in my early 20s. So I think that was definitely a pretty big personal challenge. And it
Mhm.
really, if you're having a tough day, it kind of puts things in perspective for you that there's the grass can be greener, and it is greener. um and things aren't that bad, especially with what you never know what weight people are carrying on their back,
Yeah.
when you're talking to someone. So always try to keep that in mind, and that's definitely probably the biggest challenge I've had to deal with.
I'm sure that that was character building, whether you liked it or not.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely.
It's kind of funny that the conversation headed this direction. I had a conversation last night late with a gentleman that was stopped by the house and the shop, and we're doing some work for us. And he asked me, he said, "Well, how you doing?" And I said, "Oh, I have no complaints." He's like, "Yeah, you do." I'm like, "No, I probably will again, and I have had plenty in the past." But I sat there in Sunday school and this past Sunday, and we were about, I don't remember, chapters 17, 16, 18, somewhere in there in Exodus. And I said to the class, I said, "You guys ever feel like you're disallowed the ability to complain after reading these stories, reading this history?" And they're like, "What do you mean?" I'm like, I watched the Hebrews, the to be Israelites, sit there and get hurt and smacked around, whatever else, and God saves them all the time. And now they just got done watching every manner of horror befall the Egyptians. They
Hmm.
leave, make it through the sea, watch the sea come in on top of these guys and drown them. And they only make it out of the wilderness just a few days, and they're already complaining again. It's like, you guys don't learn your lesson. And then I thought to myself, well, it's not them. I'm the Israelite. I need to take this lesson and be more faithful and stop complaining about everything, because I really don't have anything to complain about. There are folks that I know, that I care about, that I see, that I read about, that I may never know, John, that have it far, far worse than I do. So you take stock of that, and you try and be honest about what that is and what that isn't, and stop your boobing and be glad, and be a little graceful to others, and be thankful for what you have, man. So
That's
I
right.
appreciate you sharing that with us. uh,
Yeah, absolutely.
what challenge do you have that you haven't invested? And this is an ILA question, this is an NRA question. What challenge exists that you're hoping to tackle? What Goliath needs to be toppled for John Commerford?
Well, from an ILA standpoint, the biggest thing is taking down the National Firearms Act. We spent a NRA and our others spent a ton of time trying to get that done, through the reconciliation package months and months ago, related to the One Big Beautiful Bill.
Mhm.
Unfortunately, a parliamentarian stood in the way. Folks need to remember. I mean, we were kind of a trailer on the back of that thing. I mean, I can't remember the last time that gun policy was included in a tax bill on the federal level for the positive. So it is the first excise tax that's been removed in decades, on firearms, but there wasn't a willingness to fire the parliamentarian. That rarely happens. Parliamentarian was last overruled in 1975, and then the Senate reversed that decision 5 days later. So just to show you how much of a nuclear option that would have been. But having a $0 tax is a huge win. It was the biggest win since 2005 when we passed the Protection of Lawful Commerce and Arms Act. But it
Mhm.
opened the door, to a challenge on the validity of the registration scheme that surrounds NFA items. And that's obviously, everyone knows, that's the real problem. The tax is an inconvenience, but it was designed to be a punitive revenue generator back when it was instituted, because traditional gun control wasn't thought of in the same sense as it is today.
Yeah.
So they did it through a tax, and they did it through enforcing the tax. Well, the tax is gone. So enforcing the tax, we're challenging whether you can do that or not. And we feel very strongly. I had an extremely well-respected tax attorney in Washington, D.C. call me right after that happened, who wanted to take on the case. And they are not a firearms attorney by any means. They're not a Second Amendment attorney, but they realized what we knew in our strategy, which was getting rid of the tax can potentially bring down the whole thing. Now, it's not going to impact machine guns, because that wasn't in the bill, but it is for short barreled firearms and suppressors. I know GOA has a challenge on that in Texas. We have our challenge with SAF and ASA and others. And again, for the greater good, we're not in the same district. We're not in this, we've spread that paint to try to get something. So if we can right that nearly 100-year-old wrong, that would be a huge thing for gun owners, a huge thing for the firearms industry, and a big thing for freedom. So that is on the horizon. That is the absolute goal. And the second one to that, not to diminish this one, I'd say they're parallel, is to get the Supreme Court to take a hardware case. Whether that's mags, whether that's firearms, they need to decide this issue post-Bruin. And we're seeing just too much egregious attacks on freedom in Massachusetts and Illinois and Washington and Colorado and others, California, Jersey, et cetera. So we need a decision on that. So we're going to keep sending those cases to the Supreme Court. And in 2005, NRA has three cert petitions for the Supreme Court. So, and there are other groups that have others. So we're giving them opportunities to decide on that.
That's fantastic stuff. Long overdue, in my opinion. But sometimes the groundwork isn't there, or the chess pieces aren't in place. I don't like thinking about it like that, because I've always been, this is an injustice. Let's go tackle it and let's right the injustice. But sometimes it just doesn't work the way that I want it to, no matter how hard that I try. And those people around me, obviously, or me trying with them, rather. I'm not trying to be heady, but sometimes it's a battle that's not impossible, but near impossible. And then things like this happen. And now, like you said, not only is the door cracked open and we've got a foot in it, I think, maybe I'm crazy, but I think that the argument that you're going to be able to make is very sound. And assuming that it doesn't fall on ignorant, silly, or deaf ears, then I want to believe that there's a possibility for a favorable outcome. I really do.
Yeah, absolutely. And look, we're involved in more than 60 cases. There at the state and federal level. There are challenges to all sorts of issues pending, whether it's waiting periods, like I call it a time tax, whether it's gun bans on law-abiding adults that are under 21, mag bans, hardware direct on so-called assault weapons, SBR challenges, all these different things, and we are full steam ahead on these cases, and we're ready to respond if a state passes something. We're ready. So that's where the huge part of the fight is on this in the courts.
I'm on for those people not solely listening but are watching, I'm on NRA-ILA.org right now, and that's NRA-ILA.org. And you can go there on a daily basis to get up to the minute information. You've got a section here for trending now to see what's going on, the top stories, pull down menus for your state's gun laws. Every manner of resource that you can think of is here. I encourage people to go there, not just to contribute, although that's necessary, because there's a donate tab right at the top. You can't miss it. But if you want to stay up to the minute on what's going on and follow these things, this is the resource. This is where you want to be. And the fact of the matter is, what I have found to be the case, Sean, is you visit with people from time to time. You go through these different circles and these different spheres of influence or social circles, whatever else. Most of them don't know this stuff's going on. They really don't know. And like, for example, when you were rattling off the names of the states that you would consider to be routine offenders, you said the word Colorado, and that's been recent. It hasn't been that
Yeah.
many years ago that wasn't truly a problem. My family has a property in Colorado, and it is ugly. It has
Yeah.
changed big time, very quick. And the stuff that they're doing isn't even remotely. It isn't something. I'm not a guy who believes in any kind of gun control whatsoever. So everything that you would put forward to me, what I would consider unreasonable. But there are some small infringements here and there. Not that I would accept them, but things that don't look quite so egregious. The stuff that they're trying in Colorado is absolutely insane. It's nuttier than squirrel poo. It's crazy.
Yeah, you're exactly right, and we're seeing that in New Mexico as well.
Yes.
It's bled over the border there. Um, if the Virginia elections, depending on the outcome there, we know exactly what the left wants to do. Governor Youngkin's had to veto nearly 24 bills 2 years in a row. So we need a Governor Winsome Sears to push back on that. Otherwise, Virginia is going to follow right in the footsteps of what we're seeing in Colorado, New Mexico, and of course the usual petri dishes for bad ideas in Massachusetts, New York, Jersey, California, et cetera. But I do encourage folks to go to the NRA-ILA.org website, sign up for grassroots alerts.
Mm-hmm.
This is not a fundraising mechanism. We are not going to dump you into any other list. ILA solely controls this list. I take it very seriously. Our open rates are very good because we are only sending you what you want to see. Now, when you go to our grassroots alert, these are longer form articles that come on Mondays, sometimes Tuesdays, that are oftentimes featured in our social media platforms and others. They're very informative. It also has a state roundup, so you can see the most recent alerts in your states and litigation alerts. If you simply go to nraila.org/litigation, you can see current updates on the over 60 cases that ILA is involved with. You can also see legal articles. So there's a wealth of information on the ILA website that every time we talk about redesigning it, I cringe because it is a heck of a project because the sheer volume of information that's there.
Yeah. Yep. Fantastic. Okay. So we covered some of the things that I really, really wanted people to consider and to be thinking about. Is there anything else that we need to know? Anything that's coming down the pike we should be concerned about? And where should we be? Should we be falling in order to be well informed? I mean, we've talked about that with ILA site and what's going on there. Is there any other method for us to do this? And how should we be
No, I
looking at
think
it?
if you're active on social media, please make sure you follow NRA's platforms. Most importantly,
Yeah.
Facebook, X, and Instagram. X is kind of a quick response mechanism. It's a great place for influencers and the media. I know it can be a cesspool at times, but it is our quick response mechanism. I try to post things there first, and then we move into Instagram and Facebook. You'll see. Years ago, we used to be able to gate posts on Facebook just to a state. So if you're from Iowa, you could see very specific posts for Iowa. They
Mhm.
don't allow that any longer. So we have to be conscious of if someone in New Mexico doesn't want to hear about Iowa and vice versa. So we utilize our stories a lot. So that's that quicker, easy to absorb information. So make sure you check those. And I think what do you need to pay attention to? We have a really important midterm election. Every time and time again, you hear it's the most important election in your lifetime. Well, that's because it is.
Yeah.
Everything changes with every single election. First and foremost, we have to protect a pro-gun majority in the United States Senate so we can protect nominees. We have the opportunity to reshape the American judiciary in this country. We have an opportunity to have a majority in the Ninth Circuit Court of Appeals. Depends on retirements and other things, but the opportunity is there. We need to make sure President Trump has the chance to appoint judges that respect the Constitution like each and every one of us do, and get them through. So that's first and foremost. The map is in the Republicans' favor. We have a chance to elect a senator in Georgia that actually represents the constituency of that state. We have a chance to pick up in New Hampshire. We have a chance to pick up in Michigan. We have to defend in Ohio. We have to defend an open seat in North Carolina. There's a good candidate there, and former RNC Chairman Michael Whatley, but he's facing a formidable candidate in the former Governor Cooper. So there's a lot of battles there. There's 36 gubernatorial races out there, but we need to also protect that majority in the House, and history isn't on the president's side there. But if anybody can change the course of normal history, it's Donald Trump, and he's proven that time and time again. So you need to stay engaged. There won't be these wild swings in majorities like we've seen in the past since redistricting. We'll see how the midterm redistricting fight, which is a whole new beast, shakes out over the next few months. But keep an eye on the political atmosphere as well, and stay engaged. Iowa, two big races there with the Senate race and the gubernatorial. I mean, it's going to be all eyes on Iowa in many respects. So ILA and PVF are ready to fight there to make sure we have somebody that represents your constituency in those seats.
Fantastic stuff. Thank you. I don't know. We were able to visit about the things that I really wanted to talk about. Was there any? Thank you for this, John. I really appreciate it. Is there anything else that we need to know, or are we to our natural stopping point?
No, I really appreciate you giving me the chance to talk to your listeners out there. I think it's important. Trying to do a lot more of these. We got to get the voice out. For a lot of years, we weren't reaching out to gun owners the way we should have been. And that's just the facts. So I want to get out there, partner with our state associations and those other groups. And I'll just leave you with, if anybody listening isn't an NRA member, hopefully I helped instill confidence in you wanting to join again. And if I haven't completed that job, just stay tuned. And I think you'll see more in the next few months that might help you decide to rejoin again.
Well, I appreciate those statements. I echo them. I agree with them. But one thing that I would tell people listening, those folks watching, John's come on here and he's been very honest. He's been very open, and he's been apologetic about things that have happened in the past. But I will say this. We're all this way. We all make mistakes. Every one of us has, So let's be honest about the nature of things here. Are we going to continue to beat everybody up and throttle them for the mistakes of yesteryear? Or are we going to recognize that changes have been made, that apologies have been offered, forgiveness has been requested? Are we going to grant that forgiveness and move forward? Or are we going to keep flogging the dead horse? So I encourage people. Yeah, thank you, John, for, as I said, thank you sincerely for the apologetic tone of some of the things that you mentioned. And oh, by the way, those guys listening, quit beating these guys up. They're trying to do the work. So let's help them do the work instead of sit back and complain while they do the work. Get involved, reintegrate, re-engage, because we're better together than we are apart. That's simple. Those are some of the things that John's been talking about. So come into the group, engage, and let's get this thing rolling. So John Commerford, NRA-ILA, thank you so much for your time today. Thank you for your comments. I really, really appreciate it.
Appreciate you having me.